Hey guys, just made it to California after doing my camp with Lucas Lepre in Charlotte, North Carolina. And so I just wanted to do a video, which I'm going to use for other content as well. But I just wanted to talk a little bit about my story getting ready for ADCC. It's about approximately a week before the tournament. And this is probably going to be the biggest ADCC ever just because it's 2019. So the social media is just so much bigger now. Like the eyeballs, the people watching the ADCC. There's more people watching ADCC than ever before. So it's gonna be the biggest one. Lots of very talented and big named athletes, and also it's the tournament's in California. So that all those factors are making this one of the biggest tournaments, one of the biggest ADCCs ever, and it's being hyped up. So I just want to talk a little bit about my story, and I plan on doing a video now and maybe a little bit, maybe right before the actual tournament, and of course after the tournament. So I'll break this video up into parts for me, for my sake, and just be on the lookout for this content coming out. Okay. So my journey to do ADCC, I can't really talk about other athletes, but my own journey, ADCC was always a tournament that I was inspired by, watching athletes like Marcelo Garcia, Hodger Gracie, uh, Jacare, so many other great people compete. And for me, it was just like magical. I remember being like a white belt or blue belt, and like I never thought I would be doing this tournament. And for me, it was always like my heroes out there competing and doing really well and doing these awesome techniques. And and then fast forward a few years later, I actually had a friend, a great friend of mine, Chris Moriarty, who he's pretty much a mentor to me. I've trained under him for a long time. And he actually won the trials in maybe 2006, the East Coast trials. And so we had, I'm training with him, so we're helping him to prepare for the tournament. And crazy story with Chris, he actually broke his leg fighting Rafael Lovato at this old tournament called the Budweiser Cup they used to have, and it was a freak accident where he just tried to. I think Lovato was going for a foot sweep, so Chris stepped out, and then man, his leg like snapped. And I wasn't there at the tournament, but just afterwards, Chris had to get metal plates put into his ankle, his tibia, I believe, maybe both bones, and it might still be there. And so to watch Chris, Chris is a very great competitor, always has been, great jiu-jitsu practitioner. And so he couldn't train for like at least until like the month before the tournament. So, just having Chris getting ready for this tournament, and well, he couldn't get ready, but when he could train, he started getting ready. That was very inspirational for me. Seeing Chris, he broke his leg, guys, and then he somehow managed to come back with like just like this much time, like no time left to prepare, and so we were getting him ready. And also at the time, Cobrinha had just moved to America. He moved to Atlanta to train with us, and then we were helping him get ready. And unfortunately, no one knew who Cobrinha was. He had won Worlds maybe once or twice before, but the American market didn't really know who he was like they do now. So he was planning, hoping to get into the actual tournament, but that didn't happen. So, but he was still training for, in the hopes that it would happen. And he eventually had like a exhibition match along with Ryan Hall. Not with Ryan Hall, but they both ended up having like exhibition matches at the ADCC in 2007. This is a long time ago, guys. So I just wanted to bring all this up because for me, like, I was always like outside looking in. I train with all these high level guys, and they're getting ready for this tournament, and I just try my best to help them prepare. And I actually remember I was fortunate to be able to go up to the 2007 ADCC in Trenton, New Jersey. And me and some guys, we got up, we rented a van, and we drove up there from Atlanta. So it was crazy road trip. And I just remember the whole experience was amazing, man. Just being around those athletes, watching those matches, and like every match was awesome. And I'll never forget like Marcelo getting up. Marcelo goes to compete, and like everybody in the whole venue would get up and then move over to where he was competing. So that was amazing to watch. And for me, like I'll never forget like going back home. We had a long ride, long road trip back home, and I just remember thinking like, man, maybe one day I can do that. You know, I want to be at that level where I can compete on that stage. And so that was 2007, and it just never worked out for me because I was in school, and you know every life just got in the way. So I never got a chance to do the trials, and it wasn't very promoted. It's not like now where it's big. I mean, ADCC is very prestigious, but like the trials, they would like give you like 3 weeks notice. Oh, it's gonna be in this small place in Florida, so it was just hard to do, especially being like a broke student. I couldn't do all the tournaments, and but I never gave up hope. And eventually in 2018, I was able to, I had the resources eventually. I had just moved to Sweden the year prior, and I just saw a great opportunity to go do the trials in 2018, which were in New Jersey. And then I didn't really have any expectations. I just knew I wanted to go compete. I just wanted to go do the trials just so I could say I did it. And I think just the right circumstances, it worked out for me. I had just the right mentality. I had the right skill set, and I had a great coach, my friend Jeff Cummings, to help me get through some very tough matches with very tough athletes. So I just wanted to talk about the backstory before, and that now leading up until the tournament. So for the trials, I was living in Sweden, and then before ADCC, I actually decided to move back to the States, and it just coincided with my training for ADCC. And it's been a long trip for me. It started in Stockholm over a month ago. My journey for ADCC started in Stockholm. I did a summer camp, this huge camp in Nacka, Stockholm, with the team is called Nacka Dojo. So I was there along with a great friend of mine, John Thomas, and very good black belt Teta with what is this team called? I don't remember his team off the top of my head, but it's very good team out of Norway. And so we did this huge camp of like 250 people, and before then I got injured. I hurt my knee doing the gi worlds, which I didn't need to do, but I'm crazy like that. I just wanted to go out there and do it. And so we do the gi, or I got injured at gi worlds, and I took like a month or two off training, like no jiu-jitsu rolling or anything, just strength training. And so the camp in Stockholm was like the starting point for me to start all over again, pretty much. And then luckily I was teaching no-gi predominantly, so I got to get back into flow there with some of the guys doing the camp. And so started in Stockholm, and then I went back home in Gothenburg. That's where I lived in Sweden. And then I had like a few days there, and then I went to America. And the first stop I had was in Orlando. I was there checking out one of the schools there, Orlando BJJ, as well as my friend Pedro Torres. So I went there just to kind of go acclimate myself, train a little bit of no-gi. We had some really good guys coming to train in Orlando. So that was good for me just to kind of get acclimated back to the States. And then from there I went to New Jersey, where I was training with Maximum Athletics with my good friend Dave P in New Jersey, North Plainfield, New Jersey. So I was there for maybe 2 weeks, just again training no-gi. And the great thing about my friend Dave's school in New Jersey is that they have a lot of wrestlers, so I was getting a lot of rounds in, and just rebuilding my conditioning, my cardio, and just a lot of rounds, man. A lot of tough guys there, and they were giving me a run for my money. And I got to train with Nelson and Hillary from Inverted Gear. So shout out to those guys for being awesome. And it's been such a crazy trip, so I'm having a hard time recollecting everything. So from New Jersey, I did a quick trip to New York to train with my friend Babs, and I did a gi class, and then from there I went back to New Jersey, finished up preparation for the tournament, or for just preparation for myself, and then I did a little seminar in New Jersey, and then I had to go to the big boys in North Carolina. So for me, I wanted to scale myself because I hadn't trained, because of my injury, I hadn't trained. So I scaled it. So I did the camp in Stockholm. Then I started picking it up in New Jersey with, the wrestlers. And then I did the majority of my camp in North Carolina with Lucas Lepre, who needs no introduction. If you guys follow Jiu Jitsu, you probably have heard of Lucas Lepre. He's one of the best lightweights ever, and I can say the proof is in the pudding, man. You can't see it, but my face has been jacked up. It's healed over, but I had like cuts and scrapes, and for me, it's such a pleasure and such an honor to be able to train with Lucas Lepre. So he's such a great athlete, and so man, it's hard to put into words, like me just watching him train. He does this insane stuff, and we're just like, I look over to one of the students and we're like, man, I don't know how he did that. I can't explain it, but it was amazing. And so I trained with Lucas for almost 4 weeks, and hard training. We would train anywhere between 2 to 3 times a day. And every training session, we would start with the gi class. We would do the regular class with everyone else. And then when it was time to train, we would go to the side and, take our gis off, put the no-gi gear on, and then go at it. And man, we did a lot of hard training, man. I lost count of how many times I got my guard passed and how many times I got submitted. It was insane. But I just training with someone at that level, like, not only was it an honor, but I could throw everything at him, and like, for me, it was the best training ever. And we also had some really great wrestling coaching. We had one of the guys, I think it's Matt Masters Wrestling in North Carolina. I might have messed that up. But we had one of the guys there, Coach Ronnie. He was there training with us and showing us a lot of just little details to, really strengthen our stand-up ability. And man, I can't praise him enough. And then luckily the wrestling coach would bring some of his wrestlers. We had one guy called Pitbull, would bring him down, and then some of the high school guys, wrestlers. And it was just fun to like really get to delve deeper into wrestling, because ADCC, a lot of wrestling, and just to really work on those fine details, and to work on the timing, because that's something I feel was very different between jiu-jitsu and wrestling, is the timing. And wrestling, they're just like boom, 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 they go. Jiu-jitsu is a little bit more methodical, and sometimes, a little bit slower. I feel like sometimes we kind of wait a little bit longer. And in wrestling, they just go, man. So the camp for me was just, not only was a lot of conditioning training, but lots of technical, just sharpening little techniques here and there. And just mentally, I think the mental side of it was very important, because there was times where I would be training and I'm like, man, I'm getting crushed by Lucas, and even by some of the purple belts and brown belts, I'm getting crushed. And so I had some doubts in myself. I'm like, man, am I ready for this? Am I going to be ready for ADCC? Are there people that are, more qualified for ADCC? Should I just step down? And so I had those thoughts running through my head sometimes, like, man, I don't know if I can make it through training. I'm wore out. I'm torn apart. And it wasn't until towards the end of the camp with Lucas that I started to come into my own and really start to believe in myself. And I remember I think it was one really tough day. We did like wrestling practice for an hour. We did the gi technique class for another hour. Then we did hard no-gi training rounds for an hour. And then we did like almost like 20 minutes of like conditioning at the end of the class. And I think it was at that point that I was doing, we were running, and I just like, man, you know, I just believe in myself, and like I have what it takes to win. And I think the mental aspect, guys, that's where champions are made, because I've seen so many guys that were physically gifted, but unless you're mentally tough, you can mentally push through the pain and push through the being tired, push through, you know, just that grind. That's what makes you a champion. And I got to see that firsthand following Lucas. You know, just seeing him push himself made me want to push myself harder. I would be tired. I see Lucas get up. I'm like, man, I gotta get up too. I can't look like a little like a little boy here. I gotta be a man. Gotta step up. So that's been my training so far. I've been all over the place, guys, over the last month, and it's been tough. I can't say that it's been easy, but hard work does pay off. I can say that. It doesn't always pay off immediately. That's where people get the saying mixed up. Hard work doesn't always pay off immediately, but over the course of time, you keep being diligent, you keep training, you keep pushing. And so to go back through my story, you know, back in 2007 and before, like I always wanted to do ADCC, it never worked out. And, you know, all those years I kept training, I kept accumulating experience and just more techniques and more mental fortitude. And so it's taking me this long journey just to get to the ADCC. And, you know, some guys did it faster than me. Some guys might not ever go to ADCC. I think it's just everyone goes at their own pace, guys. So if you guys can learn anything from me, is that if you want something bad enough and you keep working towards that goal and you do everything to put yourself in the right position to accomplish that goal, like, you know, it's only a matter of time. All right, guys. So it's keep following my journey. You know, I'm everywhere: Twitter, IG, Facebook, YouTube. Check me out, guys, and I'll keep putting out great content. And I've been trying to do my best to keep putting out good content while being tired as I am. But ADCC is coming up, so let's do it. Let's get it. I'm ready. Peace, peace, peace.